core transformation was being recognized internationally. People were coming to train with me from around the world. And then I had another crisis where I thought I was dying. I felt electricity surging through 24/7. It did not feel good. I really thought that there's no way my body could withstand this. It was so intense. Here's where I did have to be courageous. I accept that word in this phase because I kind of felt, well, I don't really want to die. But I had the feeling that I probably would. And I thought my best chance of living is if I really am willing to give up everything I think I know, even core transformation, give up everything and be open to something new. And I didn't know what that would be. And that's what ended up with Wholeness Work.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good day. This is Kallum and Conor with the NLP Unplugged number 84. And today we have a remarkable guest with us. It is Connirae Andreas, a true pioneer in the NLP industry and a pioneer speaker and trainer at NLP Metafest. Anyone in the industry knows exactly who Connirae is, and we have a lot of viewers who are new to the NLP industry. And Kallum is going to share some of your amazing accolades with them.
Thank you so much, Conor.
Okay.
The guest today needs no introduction. She is one of the most amazing pioneers in the NLP industry. She is the creator of Core Transformation, a process she developed in 1989 that takes people directly to the experience of inner peace, presence, and oneness. And from someone who's experienced it myself, that literally doesn't know justice. It's most incredible experience that I've had. It's amazing. I can't wait to get into it again today. It is a way that allows you to feel less like you are doing a technique and more like you're experiencing coming home. Her work has been published in 18 languages, and she is still innovating with her latest work, the Wholeness Work, pushing the field into an entirely new territory. Welcome back to the Unplugged podcast, Connirae.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Amazing. I have a question that I'll ask straight off the bat. And over the years of you being in the NLP industry, you would have seen some incredible change take place. And there are things that the NLP industry have uniquely almost owned in the sense that it was brought to the world through the lens or through the techniques of NLP. What do you feel that NLP got right at the very beginning that most personal development or professional development teachings are now starting to incorporate into their work?
Well, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Great question. Yeah, I love it. What did NLP get right from the start? I think I would have my immediate answers to that are that the NLP field, it was a shift of paradigm. And I was in training in graduate school studies in clinical psychology when I learned about NLP. And it was a real shift of how you think about change, meaning that instead of being more theoretical and more theory-based and more past history-based, it was about what's the structure of experience right now in the moment. If we're going to have a wonderful day, what's the structure of that? Can we pattern that out so that everyone can have that kind of a wonderful day? If someone has a difficulty or problem, can we find the structure of that so we can understand what needs to be changed? So it was really approaching things more like I have to say, like computer programming. For some people that might seem like a negative. It sounds cold, but maybe. But the thing is, it allows for incredible compassion when you know how to use it. The field did not always use it for incredible compassion at the beginning, but in my view, not always. But that has more to do with the person maybe using it than the methods itself. But it really, when you understand the structure of experience, you have an ability to be more precise about what needs to happen for each of us to have the kind of life we want. So that precision, the going for the structure of experience, and also the awareness, the explicit tracking of nonverbal experience, like that was strong right at the beginning.
Hey there, this is Connor and Kallum from Connekt Coaching. Hope you are enjoying the Unplugged podcast. Nothing lights us up more than seeing businesses thrive, especially in uncertain times. We have 32 combined years of doing nothing but mentoring and training businesses from around the globe in order to increase their revenue and thrive in uncertain times. So what we would like to do is share with you a little bit about what we've discovered over the last 32 years.
We've created this amazing business model called the Forever Business Model, and we want to give it to you for free. All you need to do is jump down into the description below. There's a link there called Steal Our Forever Business Model. Click on the link. There's a 9-minute video that you can watch where we unpack everything you need to know to implement it in your business right away.
And be taught very explicitly in the field of NLP. So we would teach people how to recognize, we call it in NLP calibration, and you don't have to have a fancy word for it, but you just you're noticing.
Yeah.
You're noticing what someone looks like. If someone comes in and they go, gosh, every time my wife does this, I just, blah, 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 I go into this state. And then you go, okay, you don't like that state you go into, right? But the thing is, I've noticed what it looks like, what the person looks like when they do that. And then if we run a change procedure, then we're going to notice what they look like afterwards. And then, some people will try and be nice and they'll say, oh yeah, thank you very much. That helped. But if I can see that their expression and their state has not changed, I know to press a little further, not to just accept that. And it's because we're tracking the nonverbals as the even more reliable feedback than the words. So I think those are things the field got right from the beginning.
Yeah, I love that answer. The nonverbal is, Callum, how much do we focus on that as well in business now?
Yeah.
And it stems right from the beginning from NLP. And I like what you said about programming. So it is a lot of personal growth or professional growth is a one size fits all. You do this, and this, whereas NLP sort of goes under the hood and finds what isn't working on a more specific level.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's a real gift that NLP brings into the wider community of people interested in transformation, change, therapy, whatever you want to call it, coaching, however one identifies.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Feels like
I could go on, but I'm going to wait for the next question. Yeah.
No, this is good. No.
I think I've got a little bit of a delay, but
I see. Thank you. That helps me understand.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, because you just said that what we got right as a field at the start was the mapping out of the structure, but you also alluded to something else that I think was super important, and that was the evidence procedure. And you were talking about calibration and how you were noticing how that person was when you were noticing them before, and then also noticing them afterwards. And I think that evidence procedure created a tangible aspect to inner change. And I think that was also, like you said, but we didn't kind of note it. That was another thing I think was super important with the way NLP has gone ahead. Would you say that is a fair thing to say as well?
Yes, absolutely. Completely agree. Yeah, having this evidence procedure. So it's not just about, I think that's another important aspect about that came into the field. And again, this is commonplace in programming. You don't just you do something and then hope for the best. If you're working with a bug in a computer program, you don't just, tell it nice things and then hope for the best. And then, you have an evidence procedure. You run a test to find out what happens now. And so with NLP, that's also built in the training from the beginning. So I remember in my training in graduate school, and I do want to say there are lots of things that I appreciate from my training in graduate school too. And the people, I feel I was fortunate to be in a program with some really wonderful mentors in my graduate school program. And at the same time, NLP wasn't around yet. So I was learning, we didn't, it was, sometimes it was more about, well, you're planting seeds, you're offering possibilities. And there's some truth to that. And there's some value in planting seeds, but it's really, really nice to be able to go, okay, this person wants to be able to. So I had a client the other day who wants to be able to, approach women that he's interested in and do this without tension and do this comfortably. And so what's the evidence procedure for when change has happened? And that's going to be a particular shift in state that he's going to recognize. And so when we're clear on that, it kind of helps. And in the method that I now use, and we'll get into this later, I'm sure, but my feeling is that with core transformation and now with wholeness work, this is like NLP in spades in a way. It's like going to a deeper level of NLP. So as I was guiding him through some change processes, we are using the state as feedback as we go along. Okay, so we do this. Now let's check that state. How is it now? That gives us feedback. Are we on the right track, going in the useful direction?
Right, yeah.
Or does this make no difference? And then he'd go, oh, it's a little better now, not completely gone, but it's a little better. Oh, perfect. Now this is our new starting place. Now we do something else. And then, so in the kind of approach that I have with wholeness work, there are so many options that I have all within that system, but so many options for how to meet that. And so we go through one, then we go through the next, then we go through a next. For some people, the very first one completely transforms the whole thing. But for this gentleman, for this person, not so much. It started changing, and then we do something else, and then it changes a little more. And so it's a very kind and gentle way. It's not about getting my clients to be performative and act like they're better. It's more like being real, being honest. Okay, this is how it is now. That's our new beginning point. We do our next, and the interventions can be it might take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do the next intervention, and then we check again.
I love everything you've said, and over the years you've created core transformations and now more recently wholeness work. Going back a little bit, I must have deleted that you studied psychology in your graduate school. What motivated you to steer away from an already established industry in psychology and sort of move towards a brand new way of thinking, a brand new industry in the NLP world? How did you decide to do that?
Yeah. It seemed very clear that was my path. When I encountered NLP, I was interested. I think maybe the best answer is that my biggest commitment was always to what works and to really being able to get access to what will work for change, for transformation, both for my clients, but also for myself. I was hoping to find that. So I was in graduate school. I was in a PhD program in clinical psychology. I was in the middle of it when I found NLP. And then, so first I began to bring NLP. I was seeing clients in the psychology clinic for the graduate students were the therapists. And I would bring NLP into what I was doing. And this was how I got more practice with NLP. Then when I got to the point of my internship, so the two didn't seem in conflict. My professional development path of, being in this graduate student program and learning NLP. I was always interested in learning everything. So even before studying NLP, I'd studied Gestalt therapy, Virginia Satir's work, TA, Carl Rogers work, pretty much everything that was around at the time. I was studying it, whether or not it was being offered in my graduate program. So I added this in, but then it became a decision point at the point of my internship where, so I passed all the course. I did all the hard work, I suppose. I took all the courses. I passed orals, passed comps, did my dissertation. I had the whole thing. And the only thing remaining was an internship year. And then I proposed to my committee that I would do an internship in NLP. And Leslie agreed to it. She was going to supervise me. And
Is that Leslie Lacron?
Leslie LeBeau, Leslie, formerly Cameron Bandler.
Okay.
Yeah. So Leslie, John, and Richard, they were all in Santa Cruz at the time, and Judith. All four of them were in Santa Cruz. And I may have had agreement from several of them that they were going to supervise me if I came out there and did my internship with them. But Leslie definitely agreed to it. And she was the most active one at the time in creating the practitioner training. She had done all the work, organizing, setting up. She was the one who initiated the first practitioner trainings in NLP.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And so she was very much on the forefront of everything happening there in Santa Cruz. And I felt very good about her, but my committee didn't accept that. My committee said, well, it's just too new and too narrow. And I'm kind of going, it doesn't seem narrow to me, but it seems more inclusive and broad. But I understood it was, they were, I was in one of the top programs in the country. They had a reputation to maintain. And so, and NLP was not yet a thing. It wasn't really known yet. So at that point, I decided to just continue learning NLP instead of doing that internship.
That's so brave of you to decide to do that, because there's so many unknowns in that decision, and you're actually stepping away from something so certain and secure and established as the psychological field, especially clinical psychology. How did that feel at the time? Was it, you seem like you are a very intuitive person. Was that an intuitive decision where you felt guided to do that? Or were you just like, oh, I'm so curious about
I don't know how to answer that. I think to me, it was clear. There wasn't, I did actually apply for a couple of internships that I would have accepted. They didn't accept me. This is just coming back to me now. I think I would have accepted those. I almost forgot about that. But I would, because they involved moving also to the Bay Area, and then I could have really been doing NLP on the side and continued my current practice. But at that point, it didn't feel like, it never really felt like going out on a limb. It just felt like what I needed to do. And I think one of the things that made it more comfortable for me was that I was partnering with my husband, Steve Andreas. I wasn't alone in this. If I had just been alone, it would have been then I would accept your courageous accolades. But I had a partner. Steve and I were at that point in time. We were already sponsoring trainings in Colorado. We were beginning to run practitioner trainings. We were doing, I think that was already happening too. I have to get my time.
Are we talking late 70s here? Or is this is around
late 70s? So I got, this would have been, my internship would have been in 79. That was the year we ran the first practitioner training. So it was kind of at the same time we were moving in that direction. And it just felt like we were in a flow that felt like, here was where I felt like we were making a contribution, and Steve felt that too. We both felt that this was a field we wanted to be a part of and where we wanted to be making our contribution. So I felt it with no question I could do more in the field of NLP than I could as being one more licensed clinical psychologist.
Yeah, wow. To
Now, I
have
don't
that
know.
foresight back
And
then.
and I say that with a lot of respect for those who chose the path of becoming. I am personally hoping that many more licensed clinical psychologists will join what we are now doing with wholeness work and core transformation, because every licensed clinical psychologist is in a unique position to make a contribution of bringing this work to the clients who need it.
Do
So,
you well, I'm jumping forward, but I'd like to ask one more question, I guess in the lead up to wholeness work and core transformations. You were really there at the very beginning, and you've created core transformations, wholeness work, and you've seen the NLP organize or the NLP industry evolve over this time. If you could go back now and talk to Connirae when you were, you know, in the early 80s, what lessons would you pass on to Connirae regarding what you've learned and where the NLP industry has gone? What lessons would you pass on that would accelerate your growth at that time?
hmm, hmm, hmm. I, you know, I would, I would just smile. That's all I would do. Because I really think the lessons that I learned, I had to learn them through living the
Mhm.
experiences I had, you know. So I think life as it unfolds tends to be our very best teacher.
Yes.
And so I don't think I can improve on that. I don't think just by me
Yeah.
saying something to the younger Connie Ray,
Yeah.
I could have made a difference, or should have even, because
Mhm.
so there were some challenging times I went through. Um,
What were the tough times? Because I'm sure when you're a pioneer in any industry, you are going against the grain sometimes because there are other people who will cast doubt over what you're doing, why you're doing it, and because they're so entrenched in their own way. And that's fine. There's no value judgment there. But by need, they have to sort of project their uncertainty or their own limitations outward, and often it's onto those who are not fitting into the box that they call their comfort zone. What were those tough times?
um, well, these are two different subjects, really, Connor. That I have two different answers going simultaneously here. One is about what you raised about there are people who are going to push back, who are going to
Mm,
cast doubt, saying, and for this, I think for that part, that never felt tough to me. It
okay.
felt, it was inevitable that that would happen. Maybe I'm wrong to say it never felt tough, but overall, it was expected, and
Okay.
it's just how this works.
Yes.
So my committee didn't necessarily support my internship in NLP, for example, but
Mhm.
I can understand that. I don't fault them for that. I have a story about that, but it's completely different. Once, my husband and I were invited to teach NLP to the staff at a VA hospital. And I'm not going to say which hospital or where it is or anything. This was a long time ago, right near the beginning of NLP. We really didn't know much yet.
Okay.
But, at the beginning, one gets cast in the role of a leader pretty quickly because what like we felt we were just beginning, and we were, but we at least had a year or 2 years, of studying this. And that's in a very new field. That's about all anyone had.
Yes. Still
so
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 young,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, such a young field. So we didn't really know a lot, but we were invited to come in and teach a staff at a VA hospital, like, including lots of clinical staff, therapists and so on. Um, that's mostly what it was, the clinical staff. And so one day I was teaching, we traded off, Steve and I, who was going to teach which, and we were both there to kind of help manage the questions and answers. And so So I was doing the demonstration that day, and we were teaching the fast phobia technique.
Mm.
So, and we asked, is there someone here who has a phobia? So there was a woman who had a phobia of heights. And so, and so I think Steve was always pushing for, the immediate test. So can you bring a step ladder in here or something like that? So they brought in a step ladder, and and we invited the woman to try going, and she looked at that and she starts turning pale before she even takes a step. You can see, non-verbally very distraught at the even thought of going up off a ground floor. And so then I guided her in the process. As you know, this takes 5 to 10 minutes usually. And afterwards, now I invite her to try getting on the ladder again. Now she gets on the first steps. She kind of gets on the second step, gets on the third. She starts climbing up. The ladder didn't go super high, but it was a medium tall ladder. But she went pretty high. And then she paused, and then she starts looking around. She looks completely comfortable.
Mm.
I don't remember what she said, but she looked completely comfortable. And then she got back down, and that was that. And so after that, it was really obvious, I think. And she said something verbally too. It's like, well, it's just fine. I'm looking around now, or something like that, she said. And
Yes.
so she gets down, and then this hand goes up. This gentleman in the very back of the room raises his hand. So I call on him, and he goes, you're a nice young lady and all, but you just can't do that. So this is, it's like, okay, I just had to smile, I mean, what if
What do you
I
say to that? Yeah.
and I don't remember what I said. I think I just smiled and said, well, you can see for yourself, and basically
That's right.
everyone else could see what had
Yes,
happened.
yes.
The woman experienced what had happened.
Mm.
But that's the kind, but there would be, I think, if not everyone, and maybe just a few people, but who were so entrenched in their ideas about what's possible and what's not,
Yes.
that he would rather say, you just can't do that, than consider the possibility that there's something worth learning here.
Or take the responsibility that he could change himself.
Yeah. So that sometimes happens. And I think, now looking back on it, I have more compassion for the man than I probably did at the time. Because it's like we each have our own process of our own capacity for welcoming possibility of change. And it's not necessarily right or wrong, and I think it's better not to push someone when somebody just like, okay, that's and the other people could get it, and I think the other people in the room could always also see that this man can't get it, right
Yes.
now anyway.
Yeah.
But if we can kind of hold a kind space for him,
Mhm.
there's the possibility that at some point he might be able to consider
Yes.
some kind of change. If we don't press and alienate him and make him into the bad guy, then
Yes.
perhaps he can also, when he on his own timetable, either consider it, or maybe he comes up with a clearer objection.
Yes.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe so. Are you sure? Is this woman a shill? Did you pay her to do this? Is she a
Yes.
friend of yours? These things can be worth investigating.
Cal
So
and I would have what when we had someone in the trainings, in the NLP trainings, who was skeptical, even though they had invested to be there, and they were skeptical, and they would ask the questions they asked could come across as being challenging, but we would always assess and say, are they are they asking these questions because they want the change, but they have their own limitations and stuff in the way, and that's their strategy in life. Whenever they're about to learn something new that's going to help them, they have this strategy of stepping back or rejecting the unknown because they're afraid of whatever it is around the corner.
Mhm.
So we completely agree with that notion. And what did we say, Callum? We would say, what was it? Are they? So yeah, I think, are they kicking and screaming along the way and they want the end result, or are they just kicking and screaming because they don't want the end result? And
Mm.
we would always analyze that, and 9 out of 10 times people want that transformation. It's just
Yeah.
the old patterns in their life are running, and they don't
Yeah.
have the neurology in order to, I don't know if
Yeah.
acceptance is the word, but in order to grow in that moment. So we do hold that space for them. Yes.
The model
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
world hasn't caught up yet with the things that they're seeing in front of them, and it is done in a rapid way. We used to call it the fast track NLP course because it was taught
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
quickly. I had a couple of questions, and I'm not sure if you finished with your answers yet, Connirae, but I think for Conor and I, we watched from across the pond, the Pacific Ocean, at the greats in the NLP field, and we definitely put yourself there. But there was also Steve Andreas, your husband, and I'd just love to know a little bit about what he was like and the way that he thought about NLP in the early days, and what was the motivation behind him and staying in the field for so long. And yeah, if you could just tell a little bit of a story about him, because I think we have heard so much about him, and he's one of the greats of the field. And yeah, it would just be nice to hear from you what he was like.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. And there's so many different levels of answer to that question I could give. I'm going to start with the part that I think drew me to him and that I think made him a leader in the field. And
Mm.
is he had I could he had this his interest was in transformation. He had such a strong commitment and pull of being interested in transfer. That was more important to him than his personal reputation or anything like that. I could see that so clearly. So the first time I saw him train, I saw he wasn't always like this, but the first time I saw him teach a group, he was a Gestalt leader then. His name was John O. Stevens, and he wrote the book Awareness in Gestalt Therapy. He did the Fritz Perls books. So he was a Gestalt leader, and the first training I just saw how kind he was with people. I just saw that, and to me, he was like a big teddy bear. Now, and but then also he had this commitment to um, to really learning and delivering, contributing in the area of personal growth. He was always willing to do something that would he was always looking for what he thought could help rather than what would make him famous or rich or anything like that. I could
Yeah.
see that so clearly. And one of the biggest examples of that is even though he had a reputation, an international reputation, his book Awareness was translated into quite a few languages. It was popular. He had this whole reputation in Gestalt therapy. Yet when he learned NLP, he gave all that up without a second thought. He really did. And that impressed me about him. That it's like, whoa. And I even kind of, are you sure you want to do this, Steve? Are you? And he's going, yeah, that's in the past now. That's not NLP is what's really important. I'm just going to completely do that. So he gave up his expert status in the blink of an eye and became a beginner in kindergarten. That's the way he described himself. I'm a beginner again. I'm going to kindergarten. I'm learning this new field because this is the future. This is our future. And so that impressed me that he would be willing to do that, because so many people do grab on their established
Yes.
reputation. It's
Yeah.
a hard, and he was really willing to let it go. And the other thing that I saw in him um, is this interest in contributing rather than so. So we were in NLP for a while, and pretty soon he was going, Connirae, there are no popular books there are no mainstream books that are really accessible to the general public. So so I agreed with him on it, and the two of us took that on as I completely, behind that one, and the two of us took on then creating Frogs into Princes, transformations, reframing, using your brain for a change. And that's where I think both of us felt like our partnership really allowed us to do more and be more than either of us could have done individually. We could really, and in each thing that we did, it got to a better level of usefulness, of accessibility, because both of our perspectives were there. So am I answering your question about what Steve was like?
Yeah.
He had his rough edges too. I don't mean to make it into some kind of like, but he had his rough edges. But those are two of the things that I really, as we all do, we all have our rough edges, I think, if we're being honest, and our growth points. But he was willing to learn and grow. He's someone that was willing to learn and grow. That was something else I really respected.
Yeah.
I think those
Great question,
qualities, those qualities are just nice to hear, because especially from someone who knew him so well. I take a lot of that and try to see that's what made that person great, or that's what helped them to be who they are. And it's nice to hear those characteristics and see how that could be weaved into the way that I live my life. So yeah, it's just really nice to hear that from you, Connirae.
Yeah. And I think too, now this is me adding my view on it. I don't know if he would agree with this or not, but in me looking at Steve and seeing, in both of us, I see that, there's this concept of wounded healer. And I think that's that all of us, perhaps all of us, have our wounds that and when we have things that need healing within, we have choices. We can either we can pretend we don't. We can ignore it and just hope it goes away, some version of that. Or we can do something that really, and I think for both Steve and I, this field has been about, it's to some degree propelled by knowing through the pain in our personal lives that we sometimes experienced, that knowing that there's real value in the kind of work that we're doing here. If we had some kind of perfect idyllic life from birth onward, we probably would never have been interested in helping other people heal, grow, and change. And so Steve's background was, and he's written about this, so I'm not revealing anything that he hasn't put into print here himself. But his father his father committed suicide in the end, and it was an interesting thing because his father was a doctor who retired to Hawaii and was a school teacher in Hawaii. And then he ended up committing suicide on the anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And his history had been, and Steve didn't know this because his mom and him had been evacuated to the mainland. And this was during World War II. But so his mom didn't tell him all the details until he was like 18. But it made sense to him because his dad had, he had a phobia of religion, I think, because his grandfather had been a Baptist minister in Burma, had made him memorize all his sermons. So that's an interesting life. He came from this line of missionaries, and so his father had forced him to memorize all his sermons in Burmese, and if he got anything wrong, he would beat him. So this is not exactly like positive parenting as we would do it these days, but his father meant well. He's trying to pass on, good morality, good quality, but that's harmful to a child. And so Steve's father came from that kind of, that's what he grew up in, a harshness and a judgmentalness about trying to do what's right and good. And then he lives through the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and his father ended up quite depressed after all of that, like the world is not going a good direction. Um, and it could be tempting for a lot of us to do that, right? We can look around us and see negative things. Um, I think, this is where the personal growth paths this is where, to me, I needed to go deeper than what classical NLP could do. So to go into wholeness work, core transformation, to get to this deeper level of change where for me, this is not a problem. I'm not a good suicide risk.
Yeah.
And because I think with the kind of methods that I now have access to, it makes it possible to go to this deeper level where we feel this oneness, this connection to something that's deeper than the stupid things people do, the misguided things, the mistakes, the things that hurt other people. But I guess I got a little bit maybe too long-winded on this. So it's about, but I wanted to say, a lot of people who come to our trainings, they have their own personal pains. Yeah. And sometimes people wonder, am I too broken for anything to work on me? And I kind of want to share this as a way of saying, no, nobody's too broken. Yeah. Nobody is, really nobody at all, that it's all fine. And I think and then in my own past, I saw my parents, nobody committed suicide, but I saw my parents arguing all the time. And I could see that, at least, I mean, that's an exaggeration. Obviously, they weren't doing it all the time, but more frequently than I, as a young child, was comfortable with. And this is partly what propelled me to want to find a better way. And so I think these personal pains, if we use them honestly to find what heals me, what will heal other people. Mm-hmm. Am I sort of answering your questions? Do you have follow-up?
Story, Connirae. I thank you so much for sharing that, because that's, I guess, a level of depth that we weren't expecting. So greatly appreciate that. So Steve grew up in Hawaii. Is that true?
The first 6 years or so, and then it was like right after Pearl Harbor, the women and boys were evacuated, and that included Steve and his mom. They went to the mainland.
Okay. It's the word Hawaii. There's a few trainers in the NLP industry, like Wyatt Woodsmall, I think, was Hawaiian based. Marvin Oka was Hawaiian based, and Tad was Hawaiian based. So I thought there was some sort of secret NLP club on Hawaii that was growing over the years.
Dr. DeMartini was from Hawaii as well, which is
interesting. Yeah. Well, Hawaii is a beautiful place, and I think probably because Steve spent his first 6 years there, and they were, the way he just described it, it was pretty, it was in some ways idyllic. He could run, they lived near the beach in the Connirae beach on the other side of the island, and they could, he could go down to play on the beach all the time with and he describes this very multiracial experience. People from all kinds of countries were there, and all kinds of ethnicities and nationalities were there, and just little kids playing together. And then they were suddenly uprooted and into the Southwest of the United States. And so that was a bit of a change of scenery. But I think for Steve, Hawaii was always sort of this place of, in his last years, he and I spent some time in Kauai, and near the beach. And I would watch him sitting there by the beach. And my thinking was, this is Steve's meditation. Yeah. He's not an official meditator, but he would sit there reading his science magazines and and other and Discover and all of these National Geographic. He'd be reading these magazines. And of course, in his peripheral vision is all the waves coming in.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Gently, like, and I thought, what a beautiful way to meditate he has found. So that's his connection with Hawaii.
So much depth. So, I mean, Cal and I could talk about the old days all day. Let's maybe fast track and you
Okay.
created core transformations in 1989. Was it 89?
It was 1989. That's correct. Yeah.
And then more recently, your wholeness work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you explain for those, because there'll be many people listening and watching today and watching the replay who maybe haven't yet learned or read any of your books on core transformations and wholeness work. Now, I understand you could talk about each of those for weeks at a time.
You are
Could you maybe break it down in a digestible, easy to swallow pill that someone could go, I get that. And then if they would like to know more about core transformations or wholeness work, they could see how it fits in with themselves, either as a practitioner or someone who's brand new to the NLP industry.
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you for asking. So I'll start with how and why I ended up coming up with core transformation and wholeness work. Each of them came as a result of my own personal crisis. I sort of alluded to that earlier, but it's like early on, core transformation came because I gave myself the task of working with, I'll start slightly differently. I realized, so there is the promise of NLP that we can take anyone who's successful at something and teach anyone to do it, or we can find any problem and we can find our way, we can develop some kind of protocol to get over it or heal it or get out of it. And I was finding, I was at the point in time when my career, we could say, as an NLP trainer was at its peak. This was before the internet was a thing, really. But we had people, I had people coming from all over to teach. Let's see. I guess, no, let's go a little earlier in time. So it was a point where I started, I was doing a lot of training already, classical NLP. We were doing practitioner trainings. We were doing master practitioner trainings. I believe, we already had those going. And I was getting more increasingly frustrated that NLP seemed to work for everybody else but me. And I even started to wonder, are they really making things up or are they being honest about this? Is it really working for them? Because it's not working for me.
Were you that guy at the back of the room?
Yeah, I was kind of the guy at the back of the room. Are they making things up? And because it's not working for me. So I was jealous. I mean, sometimes I could see in somebody, it really looks like it's working, but I try it for me and it doesn't have much of any impact or maybe zero impact. So I gave myself the challenge of working with, I thought, I'm a really difficult client. I know that. And I even had a counselor tell me that once, He said, I try with you things that are working for everyone else, but with you, Connirae, they just don't work. And I'm going, thank you. But so I gave myself the task of
super empowering.
Super empowering. So I gave myself the task of working with people who had tried everything on their life's biggest issue and nothing had worked. And I said to these people, my agreement was, okay, you and I will sit down. The only thing I can tell you in advance, I don't know what I'm going to do. The only thing I can tell you in advance is that I'm not going to do anything that I already know to do. I will not use any known pattern. So you and I are going to sit down together and you can go home when you have what you want. That's what I tell them. And then I would sort of laugh. But I was serious about it too. My intention was, and I think this is where I was following some kind of deep impulse inside myself and knowing that there was something deeper. And And somehow we were going to find this by sitting down together, and I'm going to tie my hands behind my back by not doing anything I already know to do. Well, the first person that I saw with that agreement, the very first person, I still remember this very, very pretty vividly. The core transformation method emerged. It emerged pretty much in full. Everything except for parental timeline reimprinting was there in that first session. And so we and it's a kind of following of it ends up following it's a parts method, as you know, for those who are not familiar. It's a parts method, but it's a parts method that goes beyond parts work. So it takes us beyond parts work to a kind of integration that for many people feels spiritual. So I didn't have any particular spiritual beliefs or interest at the time, really. But when I worked, I started running after the first person. I did the same thing with the next one and the next one. And then I would call them up a couple weeks later and go, okay, how is it now? What you wanted to work with? And most of them out of this first group, it was amazing how many, 9 out of the 12 said some version of profound. It was, and it was 3 or 4, I have to go look at my notes, said it was profound, everything has changed because of this. And then there was another group, I think, 4 said it was profound, everything has changed because of this. Then there were 5 that said it's a subtle but profound difference. And the thing I came to you with is quite different. It's subtle, but it's profound at the same time. So both of them were using this word profound a lot. And then there were 3 of them said no change really. And I thought later on, well, that's pretty darn good results. If one session with people with their biggest issue would get this kind of result. And later on, I learned that if I continue with the people that get no results, for most of them, I can also get it into this territory where we get results. But that was the beginning experiment. So let's see. So that's core transformation. And then I thought, okay, if it works so well with these other people, and some of them, they would tell me, they would go, Connirae, did anyone tell you this is like a spiritual process? And I didn't present it to them that way, but they would kind of say that
transformation they had.
They were, and I think they were just recognizing it's not what one doesn't need any beliefs for this, but they were recognizing the profoundness of it. So I started doing it with myself because I thought, well, if this is getting such good results with the clients, maybe it'll work with me. And I started, and it was the first method that was consistently helpful for me. I was one of those subtle experiencers. For me, it wasn't like, oh, everything is different right away. But using it over time, I noticed the small differences that would start adding up. Yeah. And then for wholeness work, it was another life crisis that led me to that. So in these cases, my life isn't just a series of crises. I have to say that
it's not
kind of fine, but it was but there was a time, and this was when I was sort of at a peak of my career. Core transformation was being recognized internationally. People were coming to train with me from around the world. And then I had another crisis where I thought I was dying. I felt electricity surging through 24/7. It did not feel good. I really thought that there's no way my body could withstand this. It was so intense. So I thought here's where I did have to be courageous. I accept that word in this phase because I kind of felt, well, I don't really want to die. But I had the feeling that I probably would. And I thought my best chance of living is if I really am willing to give up everything I think I know, even core transformation, give up everything and be open to something new. And I didn't know what that would be. And that's what ended up with wholeness work. And
was that a sitting down, having coffee moment? Or was that formulated over time and over a period of time you came to that realization?
I'd say it was a lot of, first I was looking, investigating I was hoping someone else could figure this out for me. You know, I was looking into lots of other things, alternative things, and um, I started investigating spiritual traditions. I thought maybe they know something that would be helpful to me. And then in the end, it was in the end, I started kind of coming back to my NLP. First, I was giving everything up, but then I kind of came back to this. Okay, I'm exploring these spiritual traditions. I'm exploring this thing called awakening. I'm sitting with these spiritual teachers, hoping it will rub off on me, and I feel good in their presence. It really did feel good. But then I had the feeling, the question kept coming up, I think because of my NLP training. It's like, is there maybe a precise way to do this, that a way that's more dependable, more reliable, faster, maybe even? Not that speed really matters, but heck, if we know how to do it, why not just do it? And I was thinking, so I was reading these books and of people who experienced dramatic changes, and they described a change where they suddenly problems fell away and they had more well-being. And I thought, well, that sounds good. I wasn't approaching it from a belief perspective. I was again approaching it from a precision experience perspective. It's like, okay, I like this idea of a shift in consciousness where everything just feels like there's this well-being, where you just feel this oneness, but somehow there's no anxieties anymore, no fears, just a presence. That sounds good. What if it's possible for me? And then I did, it was a moment in time that I still remember, that I did my first experiment that ended up being the beginning of wholeness work. And it had to do with a precise way to do the dissolving, what they in spiritual traditions call a dissolving of the ego. And we can just call it the self, the limited self, the experience of limited self. And this is, you asked a while ago, this is finally answering your question, Conor. It's about, can you just say what this is? It's, I think, really in one or two sentences, what wholeness work does and core transformation together, we're able to go, it's NLP in spades. We're able to go to this deeper level of NLP where it's not just finding the structure of experience. We're finding and discovering the structure of the universal, this is going to be a mouthful, I'm warning you, but the universal structures of the unconscious that hold suffering or problems in place. It gives us a way to understand and find that. And the first of those structures is the limited self. So when I go about my day, I realized that, when I went about my day, I spent a lot more time than I cared to admit being a little nervous or anxious about what other people were thinking about me. And, am I going to fit in? Is this what and I spent a lot of time attempting to adapt myself to what other people might want me to be.
Yes.
And among lots of other things, we could say. Or things I get my feelings hurt about something, or this or that, all of these sort of typical, I think they're fairly typical human problems. So that comes, all of those problems, what I started discovering with the wholeness work made it clear for me, problems are harder work, actually. People think that finding solutions is hard work. But
having a problem is harder.
Yeah, but when we know how to do it, when we understand how to go to this deeper structure level, we discover that actually our problems, we discover how that's more work, and it's because of this unconscious experience of limited self, and that's just a mouthful. And to anyone interested, I have a free intro on where I walk you through a taste. There's a book, the book. The Wholeness Work Essential Guide.
Absolutely. Where can someone find the intro, Connirae? Because I'm going to type it right now in the chat. We've got some amazing viewers who have come in, and one is called Rabab, And she's also an NLP trainer with a clinical psychology background. And when you told your story about
Yes.
she
Oh,
was
wonderful. Yeah, yeah,
psychology,
yeah.
she said
I would
really
love to
appreciated it.
connect with your NLP trainer, clinical psychology person. Yeah, I would love to have more connection with more and licensed psychologists, licensed clinical social workers or social worker, and unlicensed people too. I believe there's talent at all
Yes,
these anyone who feels a calling. There's a
yes.
place for you. There's a place for you to make a contribution if you feel a calling. So I don't have the link yet, Conor. I'm going to have to give that to you. Except, I have a free intro right now at thewholenesswork.org and at andreasnlp.com under the resources. That's an old link. I'm going to give you. We haven't created it yet.
Okay.
In 1 week we're going to have it.
If anyone is here watching right now today, where can they?
Right now, they can find it at andreasnlp.com. Look under the resources tab, and there's a free intro to Wholeness Work right there. That's going to be a fairly long intro. They're like 70 or 90 minutes, something like that. And later in a week, we're going to have a 15-minute intro where I give people a taste of it in the first steps right here, right now. But you also get a taste in the longer intro.
I've had a taste of it, and Conor had a taste of it the last time you were on the show. And I feel like in many ways you're underhyping it, or, in our language, this is not yours, but underselling it a little bit, because you talk about meeting the limited self, but I actually believe wholeness work goes far beyond that as well, Connirae. And
yes,
I'm thinking here about the structure of the unconscious that Carl Jung mapped out, with the ego, then the anima, the animus, then coming back to the I, and before that, the watcher on the threshold, as some people call it, where you're on that threshold almost of the dichotomy of reality, the duality that you have to go past in order to experience that I. So in many ways, I feel like maybe you're saying that so that people have like a cup holder to understand what it does in a coaching and therapeutic space, but I feel like it goes far beyond that.
I appreciate.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you speaking from your experience of it, Conor. I'm Kallum, because that's so valuable. And you're right. Yeah, but the limit itself, that's just the first piece of it. And
that's like the first step.
Kind of, I think that, yeah, exactly. That's the first step. That's the doorway. You get a lot of benefit from doing that. But then that's the doorway that makes it possible to go to the work of Carl Jung and some of the other greats in the therapy field, and have a way of really transforming and healing what they started mapping out. Because they didn't really have an easy way. So it gives us an easier way to heal those unconscious woundings that are there. So we can't do the thorough healing of the unconscious wounding without first beginning to address the limited self structure. And we cannot fully, completely integrate the limited self structure without healing the psychological wounding that each of us has. So I think they both, I
agree. And I kind of wanted, I've been eagerly waiting to have this conversation with you, because I had a couple of questions, and Peter, someone who works on your team, and I had a very long conversation the other day. He's such a brilliant guy. But there is this beyond place that you can go with this technique that you've used, and it doesn't require theology or dogma or a belief system to do it. It's a very, very straightforward way. All you really need to know is to have a human experience. But once you do access, and you do go beyond the limited self, and I do believe beyond the ego and the anima animus, as Carl Jung described it, and to the I, there's almost like this, and I'm not sure if you can elaborate on this for me, but there's almost this place that you wind up that's more real than maybe this reality feels at times. And I feel like it is
I like that way of putting it.
Yeah, a bridge to this state where you are connected to everything, and I'm just going to call it, you're connected to God, you're connected to universe. You see yourself no longer as this small little, being, but you feel this greater sense of awe. Let's just call it awe, in that you are connected to that energetic space or the field of, or God or universe, whatever label you want to give it. But that is one of the most transformative places to be, because it kind of, in many ways, I often wonder if why we come back from that place. And that was one of the questions I had, because I posed it to people the other day. I wonder, because it feels so much like home. And then, obviously through just natural experience, you come back to the duality of things and reality again. I wonder, is that, I'm trying to figure out the reasons why we choose not to just stay in that state all the time. Like, some of the people,
Oh,
yeah. I don't know if it's a fully
what
formed
a
question, but
beautiful
I hope you know what
question.
I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, what a beautiful question. Yeah, what a beautiful question. I'll do my best, Callum.
Thank
You
you.
know,
Thank you.
so now for me to answer that, I first just that touches me to hear that question. I think to answer it, I need to kind of speak for the universe, which is really beyond what I'm qualified to do. So you don't need to take it seriously, but here's my sense of it. Like, I think that we're okay. Now this gets a little metaphysical, and
Oh
I
God.
want to say, before I say it, I want to say you don't have to have any belief systems to benefit from wholeness work. So what I'm going to say is my best way of putting something into words that I feel viscerally. Um, that doesn't make it true or not true. It's just, here's how I think about it right now. And it's that if I think about it, okay, that state, it's wonderful. Yeah, it feels like home. Why would we come back? And I think it's the same reason that we're incarnated in physical form. So we have a body, but we all know that we're more than just a body. That's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Because somebody after the spirit has departed, after they've died, the body is still there. I saw this. Anybody who's been with someone when they died, has experienced that difference. The body's different when there's a spirit inside of it, some kind of life inside of it. Whatever you think about that. So we have been incarnated, some kind of consciousness is incarnated in human form, and it's for a purpose. And it's not necessarily a purpose that our conscious mind can understand completely ever. But one way to describe it or think about it is that maybe the purpose of our being incarnated is there's some kind of awakening that happens literally for the physical form of us. We're meant not just to leave this plane and go into some other space of that's nice and pleasant, but there's a kind of growth that happens as we let ourselves experience inhabiting our body, inhabiting our life, inhabiting our relationships, and we notice, oh, that triggers me a little bit, or I'm getting into being judgmental here, or whatever. When we allow ourselves to notice that, and then with wholeness work, we have a way of kindly including that and inviting that also to wake up. And then the magic that it becomes a deeper and deeper magic that happens for us. It can feel both ordinary and magical at the same time.
Same time. Yeah.
Do I start answering that?
Yeah, you did. And I think, Peter and I got to a similar place the other day where, a lot of when we talk about wholeness work at the core of it, beyond the limited self part, and then the steps that go beyond, that you only really have signposts to explain the experience. There's no real label that you can put on it. It's kind of like just signposts that are pointing to it, but not actually it. But we came to the same conclusion where, obviously there's a purpose for this conscious being incarnated into this experience, and maybe having that connection to where the wholeness work can take us is to bring more of that back into who we are. It's kind of like, in the Christian philosophy, bringing bringing the light of God into every action that you do, knowing them by their work. So bringing that work back
Yeah.
into who
Yeah.
you are in this world, and having that
Yeah.
be the light that sort of shines for others as well. Kind of that's the best way I kind of was able to do with it.
I
Sorry, I'm
like
not doing
that.
it
I
justice.
like
I'm
that,
sorry.
Callum. Yeah. That resonates for me. Yeah, yeah. And Callum, yeah, Peter, after talking with you, he said, "Oh, you should ask Callum about his experience. He really appreciated what you shared with him." And I don't
Yeah.
know if you feel like is sharing any more about your experience, but I realize I don't really know how you.
Yeah, so I mean, I obviously everyone knows me from an NLP perspective, but really my whole journey started from a more spiritual place. I was brought up in a very Catholic household and went through all the sacraments, and from a very young age my grandmother taught me how to have a relationship with God. It obviously was framed around the Christian theology, but I felt always like I had a very direct connection to God and could speak to God, and I would get signs or communication on how to go about different things. But there were things that happened throughout my life, and I don't want to put a name to it, but the best kind of explanation that I could come up with, it was a book that was given to me called Kundalini Rising, and it was an explanation of people who had spontaneous experiences, which kind of relates back to your lightning through the body experience, where it's like this jolt of energy was coming through you, but at the same time, it kind of was a destructive feeling, but I knew that it was also a very natural one. I knew that it was kind of shining the light for me, and that where it kind of led me was to have these meditative experiences where I felt almost like I was in that oneness or wholeness with God. And I felt like there was nothing to do there. It was outside of time and space, but it would happen spontaneously. So it was quite destructive to my life at different points. But I always carried that with me. And I guess my road to NLP was to try to unpack and explain what that was, right? What is this that's occurring, and what does it mean? And that book helped a lot. And there's a lot of other, literature that helped me understand it. But then when you started to do the wholeness method with me on the podcast, I knew exactly where I was going because I've been there so many times before. And it was beautiful to me, and it's going to bring tears to my eyes. It was beautiful to me because it finally gave me a little bit more control over that experience rather than it just happening spontaneously. And I could feel myself on that kind of razor's edge of dropping into it more fully, but deciding, shit, I'm on a podcast and it's live, and I should probably
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you're gonna
yeah, yeah.
lose
I
me
don't
for
remember you sharing all of that then. Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah,
lose me
yeah.
you're gonna lose me for a couple of hours here. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was beautiful, and I'm really grateful to have met you, and to have learnt that through you. So yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that too. And I want everyone listening to know that with the same experience that I guided Callum in and other listeners in, there's a range of response, and whatever your response is, it's always perfect. Really,
Check. Yeah.
totally. It's not. I'm not just saying that. It really is. So some people have, like Callum did, described a really profound experience of connect. There's one example like that in the book, in the introduction to the Wholeness book, a woman who described how it just really changed, how she had a powerful experience like Callum described, and she described how it shifted everything and how she interacted with her neighbors and other people. And so sometimes it's really profound like that. For other people, it's really very subtle, and that's how I was. So, and I just want people to know it's fine if you just have a really subtle experience too. For the first time I did it, my response was so subtle, I wasn't sure I was on the right track. You know, I tried it a few times and I gradually gained confidence. Yeah, I think there is something here. This really feels like, but I would have, at that point, I would have been envious of Callum's experience because it's so strong. And yet now I have to say I'm not envious. I'm touched by Callum's experience, but I no longer feel that response I would have felt before. And that has to do with the next structures that we find inside after the set limited self. The authority structure is next, and then the what's missing structure, the emptiness nurturing structures. When we find and heal each of those, it leads to this ease with and comfort with how I actually am in this moment. And so my response is a tiny, subtle response. It's like, oh, great. It really is fine with me.
Beautiful.
And there are usually a few people too who experience nothing at all, like not even something subtle or even something slightly well, it's usually nothing at all, a small change or a big change, and with most people in that middle place. And I want you to know all of it is fine, and each kind of response is you learn how to go the next step in the training and in the book too. In this book that I held up a little while ago, you do learn the next steps, how to meet. Because when somebody has no response, that always indicates needing the next steps, because sometimes the limited self structure is positioned a little bit more like a set of Russian dolls, where it's inside, it's an inner layer inside something else holding it in place.
Yes.
And Wholeness Work gives us an easy way to find the layers. It doesn't have to take years of therapy or it gives us this possibility of growth right now. It doesn't mean everything is perfect right away. I want to say that too. That it's still like I find I have clients that come to me and want to work with me or come back to the trainings for 7 years in a row.
Yeah,
And the reason is because the method has enough truth in it and applicability. It gets to something universal and deep enough that we can keep using basically the same formats to continue evolving. We go way beyond fixing problems, way beyond just, fixing what's wrong in our lives. And it becomes about growth and possibility and becoming more who we are and more in connection with what you described, Callum, that feeling of being at home and connection with, if you like to describe it in terms of some people will describe it. Some people who come to my trainings over and over again, they say, I experienced something. It's quite, it obviously is worth something to them because they keep coming back. But they go, I would not call it spiritual. I would not call it God or anything like that. And you don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. I want to be real clear about that. Yeah.
So, I mean, both Cal and I had a profound experience. If someone wants to experience this for themselves, and we highly recommend you do, can they find a way to have this experience or similar on andreasnlp.com?
Yeah. And also, you can find me on LinkedIn. I just welcome everyone to find me on LinkedIn. Also Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as Connirae Andreas, on Instagram as the Wholeness Work. And I'm just starting on Substack. One column out on Substack, and you can come at andreasnlp.com. Yeah. And the wholenesswork.org.
We highly recommend that everyone reaches out, buys the book, experiences it, because Kallum and I don't know, the last time you came on the podcast was 6 or 8 months ago, maybe a year ago. It was
something like, I think it was last September, October.
We still talk about it like it was yesterday.
Oh, that means a lot to me, really. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Conor, also for each of you, for your sharing of your personal experience. You know what I love? It's always fun to talk with you guys. I really always enjoy it. And because I think it's because of this spirit I see in each of you, and I feel resonance with it. Your interest in the human spirit
Yes.
evolving, whatever we might call it. I really see that,
Well,
and I
that's why
appreciate it so
we,
much.
I guess on a deeper level, that's why we do what we do. And, this is why we came up with the idea of NLP Metafest to share now this with more people. And that's, I don't know, maybe it's part of a greater mission. Maybe it is. But
Yeah,
for those of you who are watching, Connirae is going to be on the main stage at
Yes.
NLP Metafest coming up in August. So if you would like to join and see Connirae and see her teach and experience about 90 minutes, I think, all up of you on stage, we have register and www.nlpmetafest.com. And we have about 2,500 people registered so far, which is amazing. Absolutely
that's
amazing.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, I hope everyone interested can join us there. I really look forward. I will be guiding everyone. We'll talk more about what you want me to do, but I think
All
we'll
right. Awesome.
definitely have time for a guided experience live. Um, I can guide everyone through an experience like the
Wow, that
kind.
would be incredible. Imagine
Yeah,
that, Cal.
I'll
What if we
definitely
have
do
like
that.
2,000 people going through, like, I don't, that would be insane if we
That
had
would be
2,000 people
incredible.
experiencing
Incredible.
wholeness work.
I think so. I think so. And Connor, that just brings to mind something else. I think in the times we're in, where they're challenging things are happening globally, and I do think maybe this is a little airy fairy. I don't know, but I think having 2,000 people, however many we are, maybe we'll be 5,000 by then. Who knows? If all of us are gathered together, doing this process together, I think there's value in
It
that,
has to be.
even beyond the value for ourselves personally. I think that this becomes also a contribution, a gift in
Yeah.
itself. I think going to these kind of places, because it's from these kind of places that we go to relatively easily with wholeness work. That's the place from which solutions tend to arrive. Solutions and the more people who are doing that, the more likely I think we as a global community find solutions. I mean, each of us is interested in solutions in our personal lives. And there's also the possibility for solutions beyond our personal lives to the global scene,
Yes.
the global community. And I think this opportunity through MetaFest of all joining together, doing this together at the same time, that can be quite something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making an impact. Big ripple in the world. Well,
Yes. Yeah.
Connie Ray, we have
Always.
absolutely loved having you on the podcast again. Can't thank you enough for being with us here and carving out the time in your day and sharing what you have with our community. And we are, like I said before, so thrilled and honored to have you as part of NLP Metafest. And we would love to see that 5,000 people experiencing wholeness work at the same time. That's yeah, I don't know. I can't articulate it right now, but I think that would make a difference.
I think
We're now at levels of making a difference. I mean, we always are, but on a grander scale, because every single person will impact another 100, 200 people in the next 5 days after that event. So, yeah, we
yes.
will be at 1 million within a week.
Yeah. We don't have to limit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Callum,
Yeah.
any final questions or comments, buddy?
I just want to say just a final little thing that the wholeness work the genius is in how simplistic it is and how simple it is and how everybody can do it. So I would just love to call everybody who wants to do it to go check out Connirae. And Connirae, I think there's definitely space. I'm not sure if you're ever open to it, but there's definitely space if you were ever to put on an online training in the wholeness work in Australian time zone. I think a lot of our listeners and a lot of the people that we speak to would jump at that. They would absolutely love to do that. So yeah, if you ever plan to do that, we'd love to have you back on the podcast so we can we can help you get the message out there for that.
Oh, awesome. That's really good to know. Really good to know. Yeah, we can be in touch more about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we would love to find ways to make that. That's what we are working on, finding ways. I think through working with network with other people, like yourselves, and finding ways to reach more people, to make this more possible for more people. Yeah.
A new project.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you
Well,
both.
everyone. Thank you so much, Connirae, so much for coming on.
And I want to thank everyone who's listening too. Just to thank,
Yeah, you bet.
Look forward to
Thank you.
hope to see you all again.
Thank you very much for watching the Unplugged podcast with Kallum and Conor from Connekt Coaching. Hope you loved this guest this week as much as we did. Cal?
What we wanted to remind you of is that if you wanted to steal our forever business model, which is perfect for all sorts of businesses around the world, to start to build extra revenue in your business right away, get instant access by clicking on the description and going into the link below, watching the 9-minute video where we unpack everything. See you next time.